Welcome to the Plant Trainers Podcast, where we're helping people improve their quality of life through nutrition and fitness. And now, your hosts, nutrition and wellness coaches, international speakers, Adam and Shoshana Chaim.
Hey, I'm Adam Chaim.
And I'm Shoshana Chaim, and we are
Propelled by Plants. Today we bring to you episode 243, Strength Training, Powerlifting, and the Mental Edge with Alex Ciccone.
In today's episode of the Plant Trainers Podcast, we talk to Alex Ciccone about strength training, powerlifting, and the mental edge. Alex has an amazing presence in the Instagram world, and we've been following each other for a while. We were able to meet him face-to-face at the Animal Justice event in December and immediately hit it off. Today we talked about his journey to veganism, as well as his soccer career and how it led to men's physique and powerlifting competitions. We hit the topics of nutrition for building muscle, as well as the P word, protein. Whether you're 15 or 50, there's something to be taken away in this episode. It's a good share for anyone who hits the gym.
Alex is a vegan lifestyle social media influencer who found his love for spreading awareness soon after going vegan over 4 years ago, primarily for the ethical treatment of animals. Alex provides education and entertainment through different creative content across Instagram, his blog, Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, and coming soon, a YouTube channel. Whether it be vegan infographics, news stories, memes, and everything in between, for Alex, it's about keeping things positive and loving. He wants to not only align with vegan values, but also to reach as many individuals as possible and help them in their journey to being or becoming vegan. Alex has particular interest in the fitness industry as he grew up playing competitive level soccer, and then after falling in love with strength training, he became a certified personal trainer. Fitness is a very important part of his story of becoming vegan. The motivation behind it is basically in debunking the myth that vegans are weak and malnourished. That is what led Alex to compete in a men's physique competition as a vegan and for him to pursue powerlifting. At the end of the day, it's always about spreading awareness for Alex to show all the amazingness that the vegan lifestyle has to offer. So here's the thing. We all want to do a little bit better. We all want to make better choices, and we all want to have someone to count on to push us just a little bit outside of our comfort zone. But not everyone is willing to hire a coach or find a friend that could help us get us to where we want to go. That's what's great about our Propelled by Plants performance tees and our Training for Life soft cotton t-shirts. They are that reminder that is literally on your shoulder, encouraging you, reminding you, and building your confidence to run a little further, get up a little earlier, or make better choices at meal and snack time. Don't you want a little bit more of that? So head over to planttrainers.com/shop and pick up one or both of those shirts and start walking a little taller or longer or faster. Sizes go quick, so order yours today. And if you have one already, snap a pic and tag us on Instagram or Facebook. And now for a moment of gratitude.
Just by surprise, my mom happened to be able to get a lift into Toronto, and she's come to visit us for a couple of days, and I had some time to spend with her that was unexpected, so I really am grateful for that time with her.
For those of you following me on Strava or have been watching my Instagram stories, you probably have seen that I've been running a lot lately, and I'm super grateful for how quickly my body has been recovering from all these runs, and it's amazing to just see myself pushing my limits and exceeding them, and I'm just so grateful for how well it's going.
Alex Ciccone, thank you so much for being on the Plant Trainers Podcast today.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm really excited to be here.
Did I nail your name?
You did.
I did. So
Great
people
job.
in English, they'll say Ciccone, but I went Italian today.
Yeah, you took it full-fledged there, which is awesome.
Totally stepping out of your comfort zone there.
Yeah,
Right?
I love it. So other than the fact that I said your name absolutely properly, do you have anything else that you're grateful for today that you'd like to share with the listeners?
Yeah, I'm just grateful that there's other people to talk about, veganism and plant-based diets with. So thank you for being you. And I'm just really excited to be here to speak to you guys and to do our thing.
Thank you. Accept that with gratitude.
Yeah, thank you, Alex. It seems that plant-based nutrition and vegan lifestyle has really taken off in the last couple of years, I'd say. Things are growing, things are changing, people are adopting more of this lifestyle. Do you have any idea why it's becoming so popular?
I just think it's a win-win-win across the board. And once individuals start to realize how much value there is in living a vegan lifestyle or, eating plant-based, it becomes a no-brainer. So I think it's just a matter of educating individuals on those benefits so that they can find that value themselves. So when I say win-win-win, the three things that particularly come to mind are animal rights, personal health, and the environment. So it's really hard to argue how amazing a vegan lifestyle is from that regard. So once people see it, it's a no-brainer. So yeah, we just got to keep educating and putting information out there so that individuals find that value more readily and easily.
Right, and after this podcast ends, hopefully people will have learned some more information and realize the importance of it. And that win-win-win that you just mentioned, it's not necessarily in that order for everybody. Like
exactly, yeah.
Animal rights might not be their number one, personal health might be, or environment might be number two. So everybody's got their own win-win-win, but it definitely is something that people need to be paying attention to.
For sure.
So what's your first win? What's your order?
Yeah, for me, definitely animal rights. But having been in the fitness industry for a number of years, health was definitely up there. Environment is something that I'm still learning about myself and the impacts of living a vegan life or eating plant-based, but definitely animal rights first, personal health, very close second.
Yeah. And I think for us, as most listeners know, it started from a health point of view for us. And I think, I don't think I could choose between planet and animals so much. I think for me, it's pretty much, we've got young children. We want the world to be great for them long term. We want it to be great for our grandchildren, if I could even think that far ahead. It's kind of crazy. But and then of course the animals as well. But I kind of think the more people that do it for their health, the less animals are going to be born into this awful situation too. And that's kind of the way I look at it, is try to get as many people making good decisions, and less animals are going to be put through bad situations because of it. What about you?
Well, you know that it started off for me with health, and I think the more that I dive into this lifestyle, and I'm always learning, there's always something new for me, but the more I engage in this lifestyle, the more compassionate I think I've become, and the more the animal rights has stepped up on my plate, and I think that has turned into my number 2 win. And the environment is something that I'm also learning a lot more about as I continue to grow in this lifestyle.
I kind of chunk compassion together. Maybe that's it. I think I've become a more compassionate person overall, and not just towards the animals, not just towards the planet, but also the way I treat other people. Not that I was a bad person before, but now I really think before I act. I think before I talk. I think about what the ripple effects of my actions are going to be on a daily basis, even just going to the grocery store and the way I walk around there or push my cart. How is that affecting other people? Am I being considerate? So I think it all kind of mushes back together.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think the lifestyle, when you strip the label away, it's about love, compassion, and respect. And you start to see that really bleed into every aspect of your life, which is, is there anything better in life than to love and to show compassion and respect? No, I don't think there is. So, yeah, that's awesome that you guys have seen it manifest in different ways for sure.
So Alex, you're now you mentioned that you're in the fitness industry. Have you always been? Were you an athlete growing up? And how did you get into this vegan lifestyle?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So in regards to being an athlete growing up, I guess it'd be best to start there. Yeah. My parents immigrated to Canada in the late 60s. And, being Italian and loving soccer or football, depending on where you are in the world, they signed me up at a very young age. And it was one of those sports that just spoke to me. So when you love something and you're passionate about it, as long as you have a good work ethic and you start to put the hours in, you'll probably be pretty decent at that specific thing. And that's what happened with me. I fell in love with soccer. My work ethic was there. I practiced a number of times per week, and I was able to play at a really high competitive level in Ontario, Canada. And represent our country abroad, playing in tournaments in Italy and other places. So I feel extremely grateful that I had that opportunity growing up, that my parents allowed me to enjoy myself in playing sport. Physical activity has been a massive part of my life ever since I was small. It was only until I reached university that there was a slight shift in gears. I knew I wasn't going to play professionally at that point. And, I was shifting gears into, allocating my time to education. So activity took a massive hit. And at first you're like, I could probably endure this transition. I don't really need to be doing all these things. I'm not playing at a super high competitive level anymore. But I missed activity a lot, even just 1 or 2 years into university. And that's when I fell in love with strength training. The gym was there. It was easily accessible. And strength training called out to me. And once I started strength training, that is really when I feel the transition began for me, because as we all know, with strength training does require increased protein intake to support a number of different performance related goals dependent on the kind of strength training that you do. So my animal-based food consumption was sky high. At that time, I didn't have a very strong grasp on exactly what I was doing nutrition-wise, but when we're talking protein, animal-based sources is typically synonymous with that. So I was eating copious amounts of animal-based protein, and it got me thinking, where is my food coming from? Is this healthy? Growing up, I also had a strong bond with a number of different animals and influences that humanized these animals for me. And I did feel a lot of compassion for these animals, even though I wasn't vegan and I didn't really connect the dots fully. But those two things in connection, personal health and animal rights and not wanting to eat as much animal-based food to support my goals, that's when I started educating myself a little bit more on, not only what are these animals enduring in order for them to, be in front of me in my plate, but also, what are these animal-based foods doing to my body? And once I started to educate myself and learn more about, animal rights and nutrition, it became, I need to take a next step here. I need to try and become vegan at some point. And I ended up going vegetarian first for a couple of years, just due to the realistic, sustainable kind of portion of my goal setting. I felt like it was going to be lining me up for long-term success, and it did. I mean, I've been vegan for 4.5 years now, and I went through that process, and the steps that I took to become vegan ultimately was successful for me. That's a little bit of my journey in terms of maybe my history with activity and how I became vegan. Yeah, it wasn't a very quick process. It definitely took a while.
So I want to hear a little bit more about the fluffy bunny, and people will understand in a minute, because it reminded me when we had a dog. We had a hunting dog, a Vizsla, a gorgeous dog. Her name was Binks, after Jar Jar Binks from Star Wars. So if you don't know what Vizsla looks like, that's kind of what it looks like, with those big floppy ears. And she came up to the back door one day, and there was something in her mouth, and Adam didn't know what it was. And when he took a closer look, he realized that it was a bunny, and it was really sad. And it was a bunny, and she had killed it. And that's what her breed is bred for, right? Not that we did that with her at all. And we had a friend who was Italian and said, well, you should have put it in the fridge and brought it to me, and I would have eaten it, because Italians will eat rabbits. So tell us about your fluffy bunny story, because that's what it reminded me of when I read it.
Yeah, so the fluffy bunny story is definitely a big reason of why I think that I'm vegan today. It was the first instance in my life where I essentially told my parents, I don't want to eat that. So to give you more context, like you said, Italians eat rabbit. It's a very traditional kind of meal. And, my family, having immigrated from Italy, rabbit was a thing that we would normally have on our dinner table, month to month. And as a very young kid, I straight up told my mom and my dad, I don't want to eat this. It's a bunny. It's cute. It's friendly. It's supposed to be a friend. So in that instance, I think that's, as young as I was connecting the dots. I knew that these creatures were innocent, benevolent, and for me to, consume them for my own personal gain, whether it be taste or sustenance, it didn't make sense. And I was, super young. And I think that's a testament to, our inherent nature. I think we all are extremely compassionate. And once we start to connect those dots, yeah, vegan life completely makes sense. So yeah, it's very interesting.
But you were young then, and it's okay
Yeah.
to, I mean, it's always okay to make those choices, but it seemed more likely that people would respond in a positive manner to that. But what about when you were in university and you did go vegetarian? How did your buddies react to that?
Yeah,
Especially your gym rat buddies.
yeah, for sure. That's a great question. I think vegetarian seems like less of a stretch since there's, particularly in the fitness industry, a lot of the main protein sources or higher quality protein sources are dairy and egg based. Like, I mean, a lot of individuals will incorporate, eggs, whether it be through whites or whole eggs, in meal plans. Whey protein powder, it is literally the protein powder of choice. There were sources there for me to still use that would be quote unquote normal. So I don't think it was that much of a shock for individuals to hear that I was going vegetarian. I think the bigger shock was when I decided to go vegan, because vegan is still offbeat today, and it's definitely growing, but some people can't necessarily wrap their heads around how one goes about their day-to-day eating habits or anything else that comes along with the lifestyle, and just eliminating animal-based products through and through. So yeah, I don't think it was that much of a shock for friends in the or the fitness industry, individuals that I was friends with. For my family, that's a different story. I think going vegetarian, my mom particularly was like, "Whoa, you're not going to eat any more meat?" It's that Italian thing, right? There's so many meat-based dishes that I think she was trying to process how she was going to keep me fed, because that's what parents do. They want their kids to survive, and they're like, I can't feed you half the stuff I normally did. How am I going to feed you to allow you to live? It's kind of funny, but yeah, the bigger shock I think came with more so my parents and my family members versus friends or in the fitness industry.
Did you notice any changes in your body or in your mind when you were strength training after you made that transition to a vegan lifestyle?
It's funny because I know a lot of individuals will talk about, feeling, way more energetic or, recovering faster. I mean, I do feel like energy levels definitely improved, but I don't truly know if it was just because of, switching the animal-based sources. It could have just been that I was eating healthier, to be quite honest. When we talk about veganism, a lot of, vegetable or fruits come to mind. And, I definitely increased my consumption of that, even legumes. So when you're eating these healthier varieties of foods in general, I think that's going to help your energy levels. But yeah, I think the biggest thing for me when I made the switch was actually more mental. When I started to realize that my choices were not affecting the lives of others, I felt like a weight was lifted off my shoulders. I felt more positive. I felt more loving, more compassionate in my life. And in turn, I started to notice the things around me be lighter, be more positive, be more loving. And I think in turn, it allows you to be more successful in your life in the ways that you want to be successful. So it gave me a lot of motivation to train even harder than what I was before. When I was non-vegan and even vegetarian, I didn't train as hard as when I became vegan, because it was like, I feel great. I want to get to the gym. I feel just lighter on my feet about everything about the lifestyle. And ultimately, I want to prove to others that you can, make significant progress eating plant-based. For me, the transition was a little bit easier because of the methods that I used previous to kind of structure my meals and my approach in eating. It was more macro counting and calorie counting. So it was a simple switch of just what plant-based sources fit with my numbers. It wasn't overbearing in any way. I just had to play around with a few options to make sure that I was hitting my macronutrients to allow me to realize my performance-related goals. So I know that was a little bit of a long-winded kind of answer, but that truly was the journey for me.
Yeah, but I love that, because it's, first of all, authentic, it's honest, which is great, but it's also not the normal response. Like most people, like you said, would say it's the recovery that made the big difference for me, and I noticed it right away. But talking about the mental changes is very important. And so let me ask you this. There's going to be probably a lot of late teenage listeners. There's going to be a lot of parents that have teens. and they've found the gym, they're starting to strength train, they're starting to work out heavy, and they think that they have to be consuming the animal products to get that protein because everybody believes that protein is so important. And while it is important and we do need a bit more if we're training certain ways, it's not the be all end all. But how do we explain to these younger listeners or the parents who need to explain this to their kids how to better take in protein using different sources and that animal product is not absolutely necessary? Or do we not?
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic question. I think ultimately individuals who are leading by example offer that first source of inspiration and that it can be done. And I think, today and in 2018, there are so many examples of athletes at a professional level, at an Olympic level, amateurs, recreational. I mean, a lot of individuals are doing it. So the proof is in the pudding, so to speak. And that in and itself should at least give someone a sense of ease to say, you know what, okay, there must be something to this. There's people who are doing it at a very high level. Let me learn a little bit more about this and how it makes sense for my own life. So I always think that's a good place to start. But ultimately for me, I mean, there's many ways that you can go about your nutrition and your diet. There's a million different eating approaches within any specific, like if you're an omnivore or you're a vegan, there's a number of ways that you can do it. For me, it was macro counting and calorie counting. And the reason why I feel that method was so powerful to bridge the gap and allow me to realize that it is possible is that when you track your food and you start to input these foods and see what the composition of those foods are, you start to see that there is protein in broccoli. There is protein in fruit. There is protein in grains. There is protein in all these sources that typically most people will be like, no, those are just carbohydrates, or, that's just really fat heavy. No, there's protein there. Yeah, the amino acid profile of these proteins differ when we're talking plant-based sources, but when you're eating foods in and throughout the day, you're going to be getting a whole slew of amino acids that you need. You're not going to be missing anything. And if you're particularly worried about the quality of protein in one specific meal, you can just choose protein sources that are higher in those, I would say, essential amino acids that you would need in order to help you with things like muscle protein synthesis and the recovery process. So once you start diving into those numbers and you start to see, oh my God, look at all this plant-based protein and all these variety of different sources, like it becomes like a moment of just awe. Like you're in awe of like, this is completely possible. And I think if you don't bridge that knowledge gap, you'll constantly be asking the question, where do I get my protein? Going back to the protein question. So, but even, with any kind of micronutrient or macronutrient.
I wanted to just put a pin in there for a minute because we haven't mentioned this in a while, although we have talked about it before, is that, people will put complete protein on the packages, right? And people are like, oh, I must eat complete proteins. But what you're saying is that you don't have to eat complete proteins all the time. And the body's a very, very smart machine. So what it will do is throughout the day, throughout the week, it'll take all of those different types of proteins that you're eating, all those different amino acids, and they'll put them together to create their own complete proteins within the body. So you don't have to worry about that, like you're saying, as much as possible. I just want to reiterate that and break it down a little bit more for the listeners so that it doesn't have to be quinoa all the time. You can be getting it from everywhere, and your body will do what it's meant to do, these beautiful vehicles that we live in.
I love that explanation you just gave, and I don't want to focus solely on protein because that's overdone. But I know that I have a lot of students that I teach fitness and we're doing a lot of training with, and they have those questions all the time. So that explanation was great. Thank you for doing that. And I know that they're going to love that response. And hopefully, the truth is that I find that people don't really notice the difference until they try it themselves, period.
Yeah, for sure.
We're taking a pause to let you know that this episode of the Plant Trainers Podcast is brought to you by Health IQ, the insurance company designed to serve and reward those who engage in an active and health-conscious lifestyle. We know if you're a regular listener of this show, then you truly care about your health. But when it comes to life insurance, living well, embracing a healthy, active lifestyle, things like running, meditation, clean diet, and training for life, none of these things has historically had any impact on lowering your life insurance rates, which we think is really unfair. I remember a few years ago, after my tumor and beginning stages of heart disease were found, I tried to get myself more life insurance. My broker told me I would be denied because of it, and I was. I'd changed my lifestyle. Shouldn't that have counted for something? If only Health IQ was available to me here in Canada, and if I lived in the United States, I'd be able to take advantage of the awesome opportunity Health IQ is providing. They celebrate and reward people like you, people like us, people who live more healthy lifestyles. So how does Health IQ make it happen? They use science and data to get lower rates on life insurance for the health conscious, including those who exercise 4 times a week. They focus more on you and less on your family history. They even help athletes with low resting heart rates get better rates, and they even offer special rates for vegans. How cool is that? So don't overpay for life insurance. To see if you qualify, get your free quote today at healthiq.com/planttrainers or mention the promo code planttrainers when you talk to a Health IQ agent. And now back to the show.
And I mean, if you try it for 30 days, right? You try it for 60 days. If you don't even do it properly, and if you eat well, you're not going to really lose, but you're going to just have that experience, right? So you're not going to lose all this muscle mass. You're not going to lose all these gains that you've made. You're going to experience it. You're going to see how it works. And then you're going to say, maybe I'm not doing something right. I need to get some professional help in this area. How do I make sure I am covering all my bases? I am getting enough calories. I am getting enough micro and macronutrients that I need to be getting. Or you're going to say, I liked what I was doing better before, but at least I gave it a try. You got to try these things out. You've got to give them a chance.
Yeah, and I mean, failing is something that happens in any aspect of life, and you, as long as you learn from that and you don't let it completely demotivate you and take you away from the idea. You know, if it didn't go right for you the first time around, hopefully you learned something, and when you revisit it, you can make sure that you take a different approach that will allow you to be successful. So yeah, I think all the points that you guys have both mentioned are extremely valid. So yeah, don't give up if it doesn't go well the first time around.
So you went from strength training to competing, is that right? Are you competing in powerlifting or men's physique, or tell us about what's going on?
Yeah, so when I transitioned to from soccer to strength training, I was just doing it because it allowed me to feel better, physically and mentally, and it just bridged that gap for me. It was only until I went vegan that I started thinking about, how can I prove, because I mean, in the fitness industry, vegan, you can't build muscle, you can't be strong. You constantly hear this, and it gets to the point where it's like, okay, I need to prove this. If someone else can't prove it for me, I have that personal connection with this individual. If I do it myself, maybe I can inspire them. So I took that responsibility on my own shoulders, and I said, I'm going to do this. I'm going to work as hard as I possibly can to prove that you can do this on a plant-based diet or as a vegan. And I put it in my mind that I was going to compete in a men's physique competition, because we know today that aesthetics definitely sell. And I just wanted to prove that you can build a solid base of muscle, and you can cut down and be lean and be fit. So that was the whole reason I actually stepped onto the stage, and I did compete in a men's physique competition. Men's physique isn't necessarily something that I think speaks to my personality all that well, but just knowing that I could send the message home in a powerful way by competing in that kind of way it gave me enough motivation to do it, to promote and spread awareness about veganism and a plant-based diet.
You mean that little bikini bottom thing is not your thing?
Yeah. No, definitely not. But once again, I think there was enough value in there for me to make it happen. But after that experience, I fell in love with the compound lifts. I used them extensively in my training leading up to the men's physique competition. So when we're talking compound lifts, multi-joint lifts, for the listeners who don't know, we're talking things like a squat, a bench press, or a deadlift. And those are the 3 lifts that typically a power lifter would, try to excel in. So it got me thinking, hey, I love these compound lifts. Why don't I just focus on those and try to get as strong as I possibly can? And adding weight to the bar each and every week and getting stronger and stronger was extremely rewarding to me. It just showed, what dedication and hard work can do, and how you can push your body to the limits when it comes to building strength. So that's how I fell into powerlifting. And I did plan to actually compete this past winter. Unfortunately, in Canada, I'm not sure if you guys would have experienced this, but I got hit with the flu 4 times this year, which is unheard of for me. And, physicians across the board were saying, this has been a really bad year for the flu. So unfortunately, I couldn't make the meet that I had planned to go to because I got so sick. My training was so inconsistent. But in the process of leading up to that, I put in a lot of work, and I am the strongest I have ever been in my entire life right now because of it. So I'm not going to rule out a power lift meet in the future. I think it's something that I'm still very interested in. When that's going to happen, I haven't put that goal in mind yet. But I love the squat, the bench, and the deadlift, and I could easily do those week in, week out. It's very fun for me, both from challenging myself physically, but also the benefits that I get mental health wise. You feel amazing.
How much are you lifting right now?
So, it depends on a week-to-week basis in terms of how much volume I'm doing and where I am in a particular training block. But I was able to test my 1-rep maxes back in the summer, and I was sitting at around 180 pounds. The numbers are a little fuzzy now, but the highlight of that 1RM testing was my squat. I ended up squatting a 445 pounds, however many kgs that is. Sorry for people who talk in kgs, at a body weight of like 180. I don't do it professionally. Like, I would consider myself amateur, recreational, and to hit that number at 180, that's a fantastic number. So I was really, really proud of that. Yeah.
You're a beast.
Thank you.
You're a beast. So people are hearing that you competed in men's physique, you're doing powerlifting, and they're probably wondering, as a vegan, you must be supplementing with something. What kind of supplements do you take, if any?
Yeah. So full disclaimer, I totally feel like supplementation is just that. It's a supplement. It's not meant to completely take over your entire diet on a day-to-day basis. Eat whole foods as much as you possibly can to hit any kind of target in your diet. Supplements make things extremely convenient and make it a little bit easier maybe to get a few more calories down the gullet if you need to. So for me right now, for sake of convenience and hitting my protein totals, I will use things like protein powder. I use a combination of different things. Sometimes it's pea protein, sometimes it's rice protein, but these protein powders will always have a very favorable amino acid profile. So those building blocks to build muscle. They're always going to be a great source. In terms of other supplements that I would take, creatine, when you stop eating meat, natural forms of creatine, they're not in your diet anymore. So I find creatine to be fairly useful, particularly with strength training. And then a multivitamin as a insurance policy. I always try to get all the micronutrients that I need through my food first and foremost. But, dependent on the week, how your eating habits are, they vary sometimes. And, if there are some gaps, supplementing with a multivitamin can help. Particularly for me, I get my B12 from that multivitamin. I don't take a separate B12. As a vegan, or if you're on a plant-based diet, B12 is something that you will rarely find in any plant-based source because of the way that the farming is nowadays. We would typically get it from, the dirt and the soil, but our food is so sterile right now with how much we wash it and how we prepare it that we don't get it through those means anymore. So supplementing when you don't have animal-based sources is important. And I get my B12 through, mostly my multivitamin and maybe some processed foods that are fortified with that.
And so these supplements that you're taking, the protein intake and the creatine, are these things that you would say the average person doing the average weight training routine and not specifically focused on strength training or powerlifting or thinking about competing should be taking?
Not necessarily. It depends on the person. I think if someone's really having a challenge eating particular sources that will allow them to get adequate protein intake in, a protein powder is super convenient to be able to allow you to get that protein that you need, but definitely not necessary. You can get everything through Whole Foods. It's just a matter of sitting down and figuring out your day to day. And strength training in particular is gonna put an added emphasis on increased protein intake. If you're not engaging in activity that would deem these supplements worthy, there'd be zero reason to be taking them. And I find a lot of people will end up taking these supplements because they see someone cool or who they deem as cool or awesome in the fitness community, and they think that they have to take it in order to look like them. Well, if it doesn't make sense for your personal goals and it doesn't make sense in how you eat on a day-to-day basis, you don't have to be taking these things. But once again, it's convenience for me. Yeah.
If you're in the gym 3 to 4 days a week, doing what you're doing, following Adam's hashtag training for life, and just, want to keep up with your physical fitness, then, all of these things that we're talking about, the complexity of it is not something that you really need to be paying attention to. You just need to be paying attention to, getting everything in that you need to be getting on a regular basis. But if you are looking for specific goals, if you are looking to build muscle for a certain reason in a certain way, then you've got to pay a little bit more closer attention to it. So for those of you like me who are in the gym, 3 to 4 times a week, doing some weightlifting, doing some running, going to Orange Theory Fitness, which I'm not an affiliate for at all, but dudes, I love it. Then it's not something that you really need to really rack your brains over at all.
So I want to ask about the creatine again, because I know I'm going to get questions about it, and I do get questions about it from teenagers that are training and they heard that it's okay to take. And I know there were studies a long time ago that were done and there was some conflicting information, but I think nowadays things have cleaned up a little bit and it seems to be a safer thing to do. Can you explain what the creatine actually does in the body? And from what I understand, we do have natural creatine in there already. So do we really need more of it?
Yeah, I mean, I always encourage with subjects like this where we feel like there's maybe conflicting information, always do your own research. Dig. See what resonates with you. If you think that it's not beneficial, that it's dangerous, it's risky, make that choice. The research is there. We have the internet nowadays. We can find very reliable resources. So do the research. I'm a sample size of one. I can speak to my own personal experience. I found that taking creatine has helped my ability to recover and get stronger. I don't think it's completely necessary, but it is something that could potentially give you that edge once you get to a specific training age and you might need that extra little boost. From my understanding of what creatine does, really I think the highlight of what creatine is that it allows your cell to have more water within it, which inadvertently allows it to be more anabolic. So it allows you to be able to build muscle and recover quicker. That is my, once again, highlight, overarching kind of understanding of what creatine is. If you want a little bit more of an in-depth answer, by all means, look it up. Once again, I don't think things like this are completely necessary, but something to have in your toolkit if you want to go that extra little bit further.
Love it. So following you on Instagram, I see that you post often these infographics and they're kind of comical. They're very informative. Maybe tell us how you started getting with that idea of the infographics and where you're going with that kind of content.
Yeah. So the infographics came about really just being on Instagram as a platform and seeing other individuals educate their audience through, putting up these infographics. And I think when we're talking about knowledge and educating individuals, I think there's a lot of value to be had there. And with veganism, with plant-based diets, I don't think that individuals will run into those education kind of pieces on a regular basis. So to be able to contribute to building that out and giving individuals the resources that they need to find the value and the why and maybe allow them to take that next step, it was important to me to start participating in that and educating my own audience. So I just started playing around, thinking, what are the most common questions that someone would ask if they want to go vegan or if they want to eat plant-based? How can I provide that information in a very digestible way so that they can take some value from that and take the next step if they want to? That's how it all started for me. And at first it started with a lot of fitness oriented kind of content because I was really embodying that myself. And, in my own learning, I wanted to pass that on. But that's really how it came to be. It was very organic, just being on a platform like Instagram and seeing other individuals doing it and just quote unquote veganizing it, right?
What I love about them is that while they're super informative, there's some comic relief in there. And I find that the way you're providing the information, it's got humor. And I think humor is a great education tool if it's used properly.
I think we've regrammed you a couple of times. You got
Oh, nice.
some good stuff up there.
Yeah, there's great information.
Awesome. Yeah, I think humor is why veganism in general, I always think is a very heavy or touchy subject for a lot of individuals. Maybe not all, but a lot of individuals. And I think that bit of humor just shows that, hey, it can be light, it can be fun, you can learn. Learning is fun, and humor is fun. So I think those two together, they definitely work complementary. And yeah, I'm just glad that it resonates with people. So thank you so much for the kind words and spreading awareness and sharing things.
There is a Facebook group called Vegan Humor. I don't know if you're in it, but you can join that and put some of your infographics up in there. But I used to follow them a bit, but now I don't have time for it. But there is some funny stuff happening in there.
Oh, nice. Awesome. I'll check it out.
The other thing I love is that you're making it real. You're connecting with people and showing them ways that they could be eating that is not super complicated. Like you see all these recipe books and recipes that people are posting, and things are just so difficult sometimes. And you're making things easy. Like you posted something on your story the other day, or maybe even yesterday, about taco night. And you had this beautiful spread of such simple foods that people could just make. And whether you're vegan, plant-based, vegetarian, omnivore, it doesn't matter. This is a simple, delicious meal that someone could put together with ease.
Was his taco night better than mine? We did taco night on Tuesday too.
Nothing's better than
Instagram
nothing's better than your taco night.
Fantastic answer. Out of the doghouse.
Such a smart man.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. And that is really the approach that I try to take. Is it doesn't need to be overly complicated. You don't need 50,000 ingredients to make a solid meal. And a lot of how I eat on a day-to-day basis is very functional and simple because it's more sustainable for me. You know, my typical day-to-day eating, I mean, 2 of my meals for sure out of the day are going to be just mixed vegetables with some marinated tofu and some sort of carbohydrate on the side, whether it's like rice or potato or pasta. Like super simple. Takes me, I have to sit down and exactly time it, but definitely under 10 minutes to make, to slap those things together and away you go. And it's delicious, and it allows you to hit your goals, right? Depending on, you know, what your goals might be.
So it's 11 a.m. on a Sunday morning when we're recording this. So what have you eaten so far today? Putting you on the spot.
Coffee. I literally have had a black coffee. And I'll tell you why. I try to time my hunger cues where I'll have my first meal around like 11:30. So I will have a meal after our podcast. And then, you know, 4 hours from there, I'll have another hunger cue. I'll have another meal. And it allows me to time things out so that in the lulls in my day, my typical day to day, that's when I can have a meal. So, I mean, I strongly feel like eat to your own schedule, as long as you once again have the concept or the idea that you need X amount of energy in and throughout the day in order to support whatever your goal might be. How you divvy that up is entirely up to you and your own day to day and your own lifestyle. So for me, it works to have my first meal at 11:30 and maybe have my last meal around 8-ish.
Man, you sound super structured.
I got hunger cues every 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Maybe 15.
There you go.
Okay, so a teenager has listened to this episode and they're now pumped and excited and thinking, maybe this vegan thing is a good idea for me, but my parents are going to freak out. And I know you mentioned earlier that was a challenge for you with your parents, your mom, and making food that you're happy with. I want to give you an opportunity right now to speak to those parents who are going to have their kid come to them saying they want to go plant-based or vegan. How do you respond to the parent? How should they deal with that situation?
I think if that child has, or that teenager, whatever the age might be really, has made this decision and it's extremely meaningful to them, you can just see it. I think supporting them is the most important thing. I'm not a parent, so I can't really speak from personal experience, but I would think if I did have a child and this was the kind of situation that I would have been put in, I would support them. I wouldn't want my child resenting me because I didn't support the values that they want to uphold and the things that they believe in and they want to work and strive for. So I think supporting is extremely important to not only from a relationship standpoint with your child, but also, helping. How can I help support you? Like, can I cook for you? Are there things that I can do to make sure that you are successful in this approach and that you don't fall flat? I think that's more important than villainizing, what they might be doing. They're probably going to do it anyway. Rather than destroy your relationship with your child, or your teenager, support them and love them and make sure that they are successful in that approach. And, with my parents particularly, it was rough in the beginning just because they couldn't wrap their head around all these sources of food that they could no longer feed me. But I educated myself on the lifestyle through and through. So I think, once again, coming in at it with really good intentions, that you are passionate about it and you want to go about it the right way. If you in turn educate your parents and let them know, hey, this is what I've learned. Did you know this? And bridging that knowledge gap for them so that they know that it is going to be a-okay for you to take this approach. I think that's fundamental as well. And that's what happened with my parents. I educated them at every opportunity that I possibly could. And once my mother or my father realized, oh, I can feed you. This is something that you like. This is what you enjoy. When I would go over to their house, when I was not living at home anymore, the food would already be prepared for me. I wouldn't have to say anything. It would just be ready and gearing for me to go. And I think that is just a testament to just working in tandem and just supporting one another in that journey. If it means enough to you, you'll learn, you'll educate yourself, and the people who truly love you and want to see you healthy and happy will support you in any way that they possibly can. I know that sounds pretty fluffy and kind of just feel good, but there's going to be some hard times, but that's like anything in life. If your heart's in the right place and you're passionate and you work hard to learn about the lifestyle, those people will come around. Those people will come around and they'll inevitably support you if they love you as a family member or a friend. Yeah.
So I give you a non-religious amen. I think that's perfect right there on
Yeah,
both parts, from the child's point of view, whatever age they are, and from the parents' point of view. It's about support and it's about education. And that's a responsibility of both people, because sometimes children will come up with ideas, and when you do a little bit more research, a little bit more education, maybe it's not the best thing, but we've got to look into that and we've got to see. So no matter what it is, support and education is really important. And I love how you said that it might sound a little bit fluffy, because that kind of brought us full circle back to the fluffy bunny story.
But Alex, before we get to where people could connect with you, if I was to put you in a room with a bunch of young adults or people that were omnivores, and the question was, why should I become plant-based or vegan? What would you want to tell them?
Great question. Find value. I think with anything in life, if it interests you and you're thinking about it and you're having these questions, I think that's enough to go with. Find value in the lifestyle. As we said earlier on in the podcast, is it animal rights that interests you? Dig deeper. What is that all about? Is it personal health? Dig deeper. What is that all about? Is it environment? Dig deeper. What is that all about? Educate yourself. Once you start to connect those dots and bridge those knowledge gaps, you'll start to see there's enough value for you to take that next step. It's no longer a question of why should I do this? It's like, I have to do this. It makes sense to me and who I am and the values that I want to uphold, or how healthy I want to be, or I want to help the planet. I think the great thing about veganism is that it's extremely rewarding and fulfilling in so many different ways. And I always say it's pretty, I think you'd be hard pressed to find someone who would disagree with a lot of the wins that you would get by living a vegan lifestyle. So it boils down to finding your why, educating yourself as much as you possibly can, and the rest will take shape. And by the time you know it, you'll be vegan.
I love that. That's a great answer. Thanks so much for saying that. Alex, if people want to reach out to you, where would you like them to connect?
Yeah, so I'm most active on Instagram. If you do have Instagram, my handle is @that THAT Alex ALEX Ciccone CICCONE. Definitely hit me up there. I'm definitely most active there. But I also have a website, same name, thatalexciccone.com. I'm on Facebook, Snapchat, Twitter, so you can find me there. And just a quick plug, I will be launching a YouTube channel very soon. So keep an eye out for that. It'll be under the same name, that Alex Ciccone. But yeah, any which way you like to connect, I would love to speak with you. DM me, message me. I'm always open to answering questions. But even just the support and sharing and spreading awareness together as a community is always appreciated. So yeah, look forward to connecting with all of you.
That's awesome, Alex. Thanks so much for having this conversation with us. I think it was great for our listeners, so much fun. And we're going to link to everything you just mentioned in our show notes at planttrainers.com for people to check out. Thanks so much thanks so much for being on the Plant Trainers podcast.
My absolute pleasure. Have an amazing day, and thanks once again. It's been awesome.
You too.
Take care, guys.
Thank you so much for listening to this edition of the Plant Trainers Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, or any other podcast listening platforms. We appreciate the feedback we receive from you. Every time we get a 5-star rating or review on iTunes from one of our fans, it ensures other people will find us too. Thanks to our patrons. To become a patron, visit www.patreon.com/planttrainers. Even supporting us with $1 really makes a difference. Connect and follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Plant Trainers. Like Plant Trainers on Facebook, join our newsletter, and check out our website at www.planttrainers.com for awesome plant-based recipes and a list of our services. Email your questions to info@planttrainers.com so we can answer them on our upcoming Facebook Lives. We hope we've inspired you today. Join us again next time, and have a healthy day.